You know what? I want to treat this kind of like an AMA about whiskey sourcing.
What's an AMA?
I hate you so much. It's Ask Me Anything.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh, that's a Reddit thing.
Well,
I think Brad posted that.
Very popular in Reddit. First, going to start with basically the fundamentals of whiskey sourcing, because there's a lot of strong feelings about this. What is whiskey sourcing, first of all?
So, in America, whiskey sourcing is when you don't make the whiskey, you get it from someone who does make it, and then you put your brand on it and sell it. Let's go back in time, though.
Okay.
This is the most common way of making and selling whiskey in the history of Scottish and Irish whiskey.
Okay, so now we're out of the U.S.
We're out of the U.S. Let's go back in time to early whiskey days.
Yeah.
This is how all the merchant blenders got started.
Okay.
They were not makers. They were until they got big enough. Then they bought distilleries and guaranteed supply.
Sure.
Now over there, it's not viewed in the same way.
Right.
It's viewed as the time-honored tradition of sourcing and blending.
Yeah.
Or in Ireland, it's because all the distilleries collapsed into one company.
Right.
Now in America, it's equally as common if you look at whiskey history. The majority of whiskey consumed in American history was people selling things other people made.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the sheer number of bottles being sold.
Okay.
But because people started being dishonest about it,
Right.
the public, when they finally discovered it in this new heyday of whiskey, felt like they had been duped.
Of course.
And like, now there's this viscerally negative reaction to it.
It's like, I got this beautiful wood-carved thing, this sculpture. I was like, you know what?
And you bought it from some guy sitting on the side of a path in Nepal.
That guy was just, you know, you got it from Alibaba.
Yeah, totally.
He's got
in a bulk bin.
10,000 of them in a warehouse.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be, right? So our only problem with sourcing is when people don't tell you they're sourcing. I don't think there's a problem.
The lack of transparency.
Yeah.
Because in Crowded Barrel, the distillery that we are building with the Whiskey Tribe, the distillery is a catalyst for a lot of the content, a lot of the stuff we can do.
Right.
And we want to kind of just go exploring through everything in whiskey. We want to make, we're making stuff right now. We want to source, we want to blend, we want to finish.
We want to do it all.
We want to get like, just weird, funky barrels and doing like crazy different sizes, all the stuff, just so we can explore with our tribe of magnificent bastards what whiskey is capable of. Let's talk about like the biggest sources of distilling that we have become aware of, because we're exploring this distillery scene along with you guys.
And we're trying to find all the different interesting sources.
Yeah. So MGP is like the 800-pound gorilla. They've been in Indiana. It's called something grain, whatever.
Midwestern grain product.
A tremendous number of distillers that are sourcing from them.
In Texas, we've got Gulf Coast distillers, among others. By sheer volume of production, there's nobody that comes close to them. In Kentucky, I think Bardstown provides a lot of products for other brands.
Right.
In Tennessee, Dickel will do some things to provide, but usually they won't tell you. In Ireland, it's almost always Middleton.
Now, on our other channel, our whiskey review channel, the Whiskey Vault, we've sampled well over 1,000 whiskeys at this point. And I don't know, I want to get your perspective, but it seems to me about 1/5-ish of the whiskeys, it looks like they're being sourced.
I don't know what the math is, but that would not surprise me if it was more than that.
Yeah, it seems like being conservative. We're looking at the bottle and it's like, oh, this is very likely sourced whiskey. Now, with the sourced whiskey that we did, the very first run, we're going to go to like the big obvious place. It's the MGP. This was Eleanor. We got 12 barrels.
Yeah, now here's the thing.
Yeah.
At first, we're going to give you some behind the scenes, because why not?
Yeah.
At first, we tried to get MGP, and they told us, sorry, our barrel order minimum is 50 barrels.
Right, and
we're like, oh!
Could not.
Oh. So we reached out to Signature Spirits, which is a separate company, also known as Ultra Pure.
Yeah.
And they're a brokerage for all these different sources of people.
Basically a middleman.
Yes.
Where you can do smaller orders.
Smaller orders. And so we ordered 12 barrels through Ultra Pure.
Yeah.
That came from MGP.
Right.
Because they're making bigger orders, right? Now, MGP is letting us do much smaller barrel orders, so we're going straight to MGP for the MGP product.
Right.
However, Ultra Pure can still get us to people like Kentucky, Ireland, and Scotland before we've had the chance to make our own connections over there. All right, so let's answer some questions.
All right, Antonio Perez, what makes a good purchase if it's the same juice, just a different label and company bottling it?
If all the company's doing is getting a barrel from MGP and bottling it, then there is no difference. If, however, the company is getting it from MGP, aging it further in their own climate, blending it with other products, instantly it's a whole different ballgame.
Sure, so whenever we got like a dozen MGP. The thing that was really surprising to me is we're getting into these barrels and the variation from barrel to barrel.
We had 12 barrels.
Yeah.
And there was anywhere from...
It felt about like
15-20% difference between barrels.
Yeah, so the thing that we
did... At the most.
Since there is like individual unique barrel differences.
Right.
We want to let this go through a Texas summer that would really cook and saturate that whiskey.
Man. Ramped it up.
We want to keep it cask strength.
Yep.
And we want to bottle it on an individual barrel level.
Right.
That was a lot of fun just to see the exact same whiskey source, the exact same mash bill, cooperage,
same barrel, same char,
same age.
Yeah, same barrel entry proof.
And it still turns into recognizably different whiskey.
And recognizably different from other people I know sourcing that same bourbon from MGP.
Yeah. Nicholas Tracy, why do certain distilleries try to downplay the fact that they source their whiskey rather than embrace it?
Because they're bad marketers and they think that telling the story everyone else is telling about craft and art is the only story to tell.
It's the taste of heritage.
Yeah. No, it's because they're bad communicators. That's why. Now, sometimes it's because the distillery that they're sourcing from didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah,
right.
It makes sense if a distiller is making enough stuff and they have enough excess, they want to start selling it off, but they don't want to dilute their own brand.
Right.
Okay, we'll sell you our whiskey, but you can't tell people it came from us because what you do with your brand, we don't want that to reflect on us and our brand.
Right.
Jerry Lyle Willis, why source it?
So many good reasons.
Right.
Blending, unicorn barrels. You're so young that you haven't had time to age whiskey and sell it yet, but you want to be a whiskey distillery.
Sure.
You are trying to revive some kind of brand. You don't ever plan on starting your own distillery.
Right.
But you are curating or highlighting or pulling interesting things. These are things like one of my favorite bourbons.
Yeah.
Barrel.
Yeah.
They are sourcing.
Award-winning left and right.
Yeah, and winning all kinds of awards, but notice it's their brand, their label.
Yep.
And so what they're doing is curating.
Yeah. Like, mad respect for the distilleries that take the path of from grain to glass, it's all me, and I got my farm right behind my distillery. And we know distilleries like that.
We know almost all the ones in Texas that we know are like that.
Now, compared to what we're trying to do, just to go exploring and figuring what whiskey is capable of, it seems like it's very limiting. There's only so many flavors you're going to be able to get out of that location, style. That grain, that climate.
Think of it
style,
like music.
Your equipment.
If you want variety in music, you don't want one artist to and then try to convince him to play 40 styles of music.
Right.
It's like, no. If you want to have a broad playlist, then you got to pull from different bands and different artists.
Yeah. And we've been talking about sourcing whiskey, but another thing that has a big impact is just sourcing barrels for finishing.
Finishing barrels and so much fun. Midwest Barrel Company will sell you barrels.
Okay, and you can it shows you what barrels are available. Yep. You can check it.
And you don't have to have a license for that shit.
Nate Douglas, sourced whiskey is great, but it's appearing on more shelves with the only difference being different labels. To add, they are even more expensive than the big brand alternatives unless they're doing something unique. Do you think there's a source craft bourbon bubble? And if so, when will it burst?
I think the bubble is not in sourcing. The bubble is in craft distilleries.
I think he's assuming this idea of like the big giant MGPs. Sourcing can happen.
Even with small distilleries.
From even small distilleries.
Yeah,
that can happen from anywhere.
I think there's plenty of room for growth in craft, and I think when it fails, it's going to fail at the same percentage that any small businesses fail in any category.
Connor McGinley, what kind of license is required to source whiskey?
Distillers and rectifiers license.
Timothy Tonestil, can anyone buy a barrel from a sourcing company, or do you have to have a business establishment?
In America, there are two categories of making whiskey. Distillers and rectifiers. A rectifier is someone who doesn't make anything. They simply source whiskey and do stuff to it, right? Now, in America, that's one license. It's called a Distillers and Rectifiers Permit.
Right.
And you have to get that license even if you're not distilling, if you plan on producing whiskey.
Right.
And that includes sourcing and bottling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Gene Nassif, I do a lot of sourcing. Many people don't realize that you can't just go to whoever distillery and get barrels. Most sourcing is done through brokers and warehouses.
Yeah.
You sometimes have to buy in bulk. Supply changes daily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, same thing goes for used barrels.
Yeah. In terms of approaching any random distillery, it's like any other business. If you have a relationship with them and they like you and they trust you, then all of a sudden they're going to be much more comfortable about saying, yeah, dude, we'll totally sell you some barrels.
But you can't just walk into it and be like, hey, I want to buy some whiskey from you guys.
Yeah.
Be like, hey,
Mike,
off.
Greg, Hyman, is there a way to source Irish whiskey or Scotch to finish in America? Yeah.
Yes, you just can't call it Irish whiskey or Scottish whiskey unless it leaves there bottled.
Yeah, we're doing that. We have some 13-year-old Scotch.
It's on its way here.
Supposedly, allegedly.
In theory.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it gets here, we can't call it Scotch.
Nope.
We're going to be doing stuff to it. Gene Nassif. And you don't always get to try the exact barrel you want to buy before. So he's talking about this. Is
right. What often happens with brokerages is they will send you like a 5-ounce sample of what they say they can get, and you're sort of just hoping that what they send you tastes relatively close to that.
Ian Piggott asked directly, how willing are distilleries to open up their stocks for purchase to Joe Blow public? It's just a barrel pick.
I think all of them are willing to do it if you're willing to spend the money.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know of a single distillery in our area that if you walked in and said, look, I want to buy a whole barrel from you at this retailer, who wouldn't be like, let's find a way to make that happen.
Wade Davis, I really liked your steakhouse reference. Being mad at a company for sourcing a spirit is like being mad at your local steakhouse for not raising, slaughtering, and butchering the cow that your steak came from.
That's my analogy I use every single time. Now, you know how I would feel betrayed?
Right.
If I had paid 10 times as much money and been told that the chef raises and slaughters his own cow.
And then the meat truck backs up.
Yeah, it says Costco on the side, and you're like, son of a bitch.
Costco has good meat.
Yes, they have great meat, but that would be a disappointment if you thought you were buying a local farm-to-table restaurant.
Yeah. David Sprague, how much control over the mash bill or barrel chart do you have? Will MGP let you come to the warehouse and pick your barrels, or is it, you got to be huge to be able
You got to be big, and if you want to demand things, you got to be purchasing an unbelievably large quantity
if you're
of
going
whiskey.
to go to a giant whiskey source.
Yes.
If you have a relationship with a smaller whiskey source, then yes, whatever you guys are comfortable doing in that scenario. We got the James Showcase, and do these distilleries only offer predetermined mash bills, or can you give them a specific mash bill to create?
The answer is both. If you are small enough, they'll just say, here's our list, pick one.
Right.
If you're big enough, they'll say, what do you want us to make?
Yeah, now, because of the Whiskey Tribe, we actually have just started working with distilleries that are, smaller, craft, award-winning distilleries, and they're like, dude, we love your community. You tell us what you guys want to make.
Tell us what you want to make, and we'll make it.
And in the Patreon, people are voting on like the mash bills and stuff like that. Yeah. So
we're getting there.
Mark DeQuitt, is the sourced stuff at other companies usually the worst abnormal barrels? Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not.
Let's go back to like the 12 we originally sourced just to get the momentum, get the ball rolling here. Of the 12, there was one that was
really magical.
It was like easily in the top 5 bourbons I ever had in my life.
And we couldn't repeat it.
And I know it's impossible to be objective, but no, it's like the knees buckle at just the sheer memory of this thing.
Barrel 2.
And then, that was Barrel 2. Barrel 10, though. That thing was just weird and
it was
tannic and unfriendly. And yeah, we had to try and fix the barrel, so we did a few episodes involving this process of fixing the barrel. We did a wine-finished whiskey that the Magnificent Bastards voted on.
Yeah.
We'll link it up here. But yeah, you just get what you get. There's a lot of variation from barrel to barrel. What is the minimum purchase to source from MGP? Like we said back
now,
in the day,
it's very small. I think 4 barrels.
They recently changed that.
Yeah, because what happened was they realized they weren't the only players in the game.
Yeah.
And they needed to get competitive.
Can you make, this is Grant Welsh, that was Matthew Shivers before this is Grant Welsh. Can you make blends taste like other whiskeys also that seem hella illegal?
No, if you are that good of a blender,
right,
then go for it.
Thomas Elmer, is it the source, the barrel, the terroir, or the aging location?
All of the above.
All of it. Now, has anyone ever sourced the same whiskey pre-barrel to the different corners of the earth and barreled them with the same barrels at each location to see how each would turn out differently due to nothing other than climate?
Yes.
Balcones is doing something
Yes,
like this.
Balcones has sent barrels to the 4 corners of the earth.
This isn't sourcing. They make their own stuff.
No, they made their own stuff, and then they sent it to all these different places to see what happens to it in all the different climates. And I'm pretty sure that other people are doing that too. Yeah. I think that's a really cool idea.
I can tell the future. It will be very, very different.
Yes, there's no question.
Mark Lizak, are there limits put up on you from the distillery as to what you can do with it once it's purchased?
No, not really.
Well, if they don't want to be named.
They can say, hey, we're going to give you this product, but you can't tell anybody you got it from us.
Tim Wiley, how much variety does MGP and other sources provide?
With the list that I get from them of you're small and we'll let you choose from our list, there's anywhere from 5 to 20 different products we can purchase from them. that we can just buy anytime we want them.
Jonathan Moat Southwick, can you source whiskey from multiple places and blend it under your own brand?
Absolutely.
Yep, that's one of the things.
No question.
It's fun.
That's what red-handed is. Look what it says right here on the side. Distilled in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana.
There you go. Stephen Mostrom, how receptive are sourcing companies to working with you if you're just getting started?
Let's put it this way. If you can buy 50 barrels at a time, most of the big players will talk to you. Anything under than that, you may need to talk to a brokerage.
And then this is where it becomes like any business. The relationships and the connections that you have
100%
make a lot more things happen for you.
Yep.
Yeah, especially when you're getting started out. Jet de la Fuente, are there any regulations as far as labeling goes for sourced whiskey? You just got to put where it's distilled on the bottle.
If the state is different.
Yep.
If you source in state, you don't have to tell anybody.
David Little, what if any laws protect consumers from sourced whiskey that is poorly represented as distillery's own distilled spirit? Okay.
You can get fined by the TTB or even by the TABC in Texas.
Right. Now, worst case scenario,
Templeton.
Class action lawsuit.
Worst case scenario, you get a class action lawsuit for defrauding the public, and they force you to settle an amount that then gets distributed to all the customers. The laws are not about sourcing. The laws are about telling people what's going on. Right. That's the law.
Yeah, what kind of grain, what's the category,
right,
where it came from, all that stuff. Gee, Nassif, you can't address label transparency. The TTB kind of sucks with allowing people to be transparent on their labels. There was a lot of stuff that I wanted to put on my labels that the TTB didn't like.
Yeah.
And all of it was explaining exactly what I was bottling.
Okay, so here's the thing. TTB, and this is once and for all right? Let's talk labels really quick, just really quick. TTB is not just forcing you to put things on, they're also stopping you from putting things on.
Which is incredibly frustrating.
So they have all of these categories, like for example, if you, in America, if you finish a whiskey,
right.
So if we take a bourbon, we can say it's 4 years old. If we take a bourbon and finish it in a rum cask, we are not legally allowed to put an age statement on that whiskey anymore.
Right.
We have to take it off, right? So there's all kinds of limitations.
So lack of transparency doesn't only come from a distillery wanting to just kind of keep things...
It also comes from the government not letting you say it.
Patrick Bologna, do you have a distillery you would want to source from?
Oh. But if I had to pick one in America, it'd be Westland. Right. The ones that I really want in Texas, they've already all said, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, we're already doing stuff with them.
So, if Texas is off the table, Westland would be one of my next choices.
If we were in Scotland, you know what? I would want to play...
Scotland?
I would want to play with some Octomore.
I want to play with Bruichladdich. That's what I was going to say, yeah, but it's Octomore. Right?
Okay, all right.
I would want to play with Bruichladdich and Laphroaig.
Yeah.
Those two.
Now, by the time I'm done perverting this stuff, they're not going to want to have anything to do with it.
That's fine.
I want to play with it and do weird, twisted things.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe we could be the first to source Waterford Irish whiskey.
That'd be cool. Just as Jet de la Fuente, what's the difference between source whiskey and exclusive bottling, like a Duncan Taylor?
Ah, yes, that!
All right.
When we first started our distillery, the one thing I said to Rex was, somebody in America...
Hold on, shut your face, because there is a path that is an alternative, a variation of sourcing.
I've been wanting to do it for 5 years. I've been wanting to do this.
We're all up in this.
Yeah.
Let's go to the barrel house.
All right.
Okay.
Hey.
So we're talking about independent bottling.
Yes.
What is independent bottling?
Independent bottling, as it's known today, is more common in Scotland than anywhere else. And what it is a person who is not distilling their own whiskey, a company, who is purchasing already created products from some other distillery and then featuring that distillery on their label, like Signatory or Duncan Taylor. So Signatory is a brand, and essentially what they're doing is curating interesting barrels and then releasing them and then telling the world where they got that barrel from. It's a chance to sort of cross and introduce people to new products.
We don't want to just put like a little thin, line that says distilled in some location you're in. We want to feature so we can introduce like these amazing distilleries to people that have otherwise never tried them.
Yeah.
That's the independent bottling route that we're very excited about.
I think when an idea's time has come, it sort of shows up in the ethos.
Yeah.
And so right now, I know of 4 or 5 other companies in the US that are starting to get this style of production off the ground. And they had the same idea. Let's start sourcing and telling people where it's from and creating cool blends. But we were the first, as far as I know, in the US as a craft distillery to release a barrel of someone else's product and put their name on the bottle along with our curated brand. So that was a barrel of Wyoming whiskey that we released as a single barrel at cask strength under the Crowded Barrel Alliance label.
Now, we also did an Alliance series where it was a blend of multiple distilleries recently.
Yeah, that one.
We touched on this lightly before.
The first one we did was Wyoming. The second one we did was Iron Root Republic, baby. Now, at the same time, we partnered with Balcones Distilling, Andalusia Whiskey Company, and Iron Root Republic to create the first in the state of Texas blend of 3 different Texas distilleries. We called it the Texas Whiskey Festival Blend. We did it for Jake Clements, who founded the Texas Whiskey Festival, and he sort of started this whole thing, and we all got together and created a blend. This was sort of our attempt at a compass box style blend, right? Now, everybody signed off on the blend they liked best, which is not what Compass Box is doing. And to do that, you have to have the trust of everybody involved.
Totally biased, didn't matter. Turned out phenomenal. It's so good.
It is to date my favorite thing that has gone through the doors of our distillery.
And the reason why we're talking about this more than just a couple of seconds is because all of the releases we've done up to date have been like single barrels, and they always sell it on the Patreon. Yeah. But because this was multiple barrels from multiple distilleries, there was enough quantity. Even after the Patreon got everything they wanted to get, we still have some bottles left over at crowdedbarrelwhiskey.com.
You will have to pick it up at the distillery. We cannot ship.
Right.
Don't ask us to ship.
Once it's gone, it's gone. But I'm very excited to be able to get whiskey out into the tribe, beyond the Patreon. Yeah.
Hey, Emma.
Here you go.
Okay.
Look at that. The legal description of this is a blend made up of 29.4% Iron Root Bloody Butcher, 29.4% Iron Root Special Purple, 29.4% Balcones Mirador, and 11.8% Andalusia Striker.
Can sourcing be done wrong? Absolutely. Screw those guys that try and hide what's actually going on. Like, no, the transparency is not hard to do. Just be clear.
Here's why we say screw those guys.
Right.
They're ruining it for everyone.
But the amount of exploration and flexibility that we have to create new and interesting stuff, that's phenomenal. I think this calls for a celebratory shenanigan.
Oh.
Daniel, quickly, Texas Whiskey Trail, it's a thing now.
It's a thing. Well, it's not official yet, but it's gonna be here pretty soon.
Getting kicked off.
So
what is it?
So what is the trail? The trail is 15 different Texas whiskey distilleries. They are scattered all across Texas. So unlike places like Kentucky where you can just sort of like head over and mosey along the trail, in Texas it's more like Homer's Odyssey.
We grow them big in Texas.
That's right. So what I'm gonna do is at the end of May, May 28th to the 31st, which is a Tuesday through a Friday, I'm going to get on a motorcycle and visit all 15 distilleries across 4 days. You're welcome to come as long as you ski rope behind me with rollerblades.
I would die.
Yeah, you would.
But it would be amazing content.
Yeah, totally worth it though. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna, there's a schedule. There's gonna be a link below this video. Click on it, you'll see the whole schedule and links to all the distilleries. And then there's a form that you need to fill out. If you wanna meet up with me at any of these distilleries, I'm gonna spend an hour at each one. If you wanna hang out, the schedule, click which distilleries you wanna meet up with me at. I'll be in for an hour each one, and you can do multiple if you wanna sort of follow along. It's gonna end on Friday, May 31st here at Crowded Barrel. We just need a moment to drag everybody out, not into the rain, just under the overhang, to bastard you in. Are you ready? All right.
So we're at the Crowded Barrel Whiskey Company. It's a Friday. We're hanging out, and there's new magnificent bastards. And lightning.
New MBs that need to get bastarded in.
Yes. So here's what we do. We say, "What's your name?" You shout.
Hold on, because we screwed up.
How?
On our other channel, the Whiskey Vault channel, we had Vito send us some whiskey. The fact that it tasted like asparagus is beside the point. Don't worry about that.
Regrettable, but it's fine. He's very upset.
He's a proud Italian man.
Yeah.
So he sent us, and a very Godfather.
All right, done.
In honor of the veto.
What's your name, sir?
John.
John. You magnificent bastard. What's your name?
Shannon.
Shannon. You magnificent bastard. What's your name?
Leah.
Leah. You magnificent bastard. What's your name?
Chris.
Chris. You magnificent bastard. Vito.
I got your back, buddy.
Yeah. We bop and hippity hop. I'm as happy as I can be. Boom, 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 and hippity zoom. Love is sweet, love is grand, works one. We bop and hippity hop. I'll never be a